Today's lesson, we're going to be focusing our attention on one particular aspect of what we call misrepresentation. In another lesson, what you're going to have is a full explanation of misrepresentation. But today I want to focus on three particular areas that are very, very important here. And that is this question of fraud, forgery, and theft. In misrepresentation, you remember there's this basically, you might say, innocent misrepresentation, and then what they call intentional misrepresentation. So in this case here, we're talking about intent. So fraud is really an intentional act. In other words, you had every intention to deceive the insurance company. In other words, it's based on deceit. It's based on intent. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you decided to go ahead with it anyway. So if, for example, I asked you a question about have you ever had a heart attack, and you said, no, I haven't. It's very, very difficult for you to explain at some point in the future that you actually forgot that you had a heart attack. You don't forget those kind of things, okay? So basically, when you have intentions to actually commit some kind of a deliberate act to defraud the insurance company, then that is a criminal offense, basically. There is no statute of limitations on fraud. So if, for example, you go ahead and the policy is issued and everything, and then 30 years down the line, you passed away, and the insurance company actually finds out at the time that the application was actually written, you had, in fact, had a pre-existing condition. So in our example, the heart attack, they could and will probably end up simply voiding the contract all. Well, in other words, there was never should have been a contract in the first place. So fraud is a very, very serious it's just a situation which goes well beyond the 2-year contestability, which again we'll talk about in another lesson. The next one is forgery. It's again here is the intention really to deceive. So for example, you as an agent end up forging your client's signature because you missed a spot, you can't get a hold of the client for whatever reason, and you decide that I'll just simply copy his signature. Or perhaps the beneficiary maybe forges the client's signature. In other words, somebody in fact forges the client's signature. Again, that's a criminal offense, and it goes well beyond the 2 years as well. So once again, no statute of limitation here on forgery. At any time that we find out in actual fact that you signed somebody else's name, you forged their name, whatever, it is a deceit, it is an intentional act, so therefore, once again, that contract will be void, what they call void ab initio. In other words, it never actually existed. The last one, of course, is a big one, is theft, where you, in fact, probably stole the client's premium, for example. You will be charged, it is a criminal offense, and therefore you could find yourself in a jail somewhere because you, in fact, did steal from your client. Also, the client may be liable here in that they put in a false claim. In other words, they didn't die, but they put in a claim anyways, and they got paid. And of course, then we find out after the facts that in actual fact it was a false claim and everything, or false disability claim, any of these kind of things here. Once again, there is no statute of limitation here whatsoever. So these are the three things that go beyond the 2 years. If you remember, in a separate lesson, we will be talking about the contestability period. Okay, these three things go outside that 2-year contestability period because these are really, in fact, intentional act, and therefore you will be liable at any time that you're caught.